Hello students, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to be looking at English composition, and like you know, my name is Miss Charity. I'll be the one taking you guys on this lesson. Our topic for today is formal letter. Yes, formal letter. You actually know what formal letter is to a large extent because we've been doing it. We did it last time, and we are actually going to go over it again. To actually remind ourselves those things that we have actually forgotten. Okay, now our specific objectives, those things that you should achieve at the end of this lesson are stated below. Number one is that you should be able to define formal letter. You should be able to tell us what formal letter is. You know what I mean, right? And you know how we do it. Okay, number two is that you should be able to identify 7 features of formal letter. What and what should be in your formal letter? How should your formal letter look like? What should come first and what should come last? You should be able to identify those features because they would help you and they would also guide you to writing a well-developed formal letter, which is our number 3 specific objective. So let's go into the lesson proper. Come with me and this, right? It's actually going to be fun. So let's do it. Now, the first specific objective is the definition of formal letter. Now, a formal letter, like is actually an official letter. It is an official letter. It is a type of letter that is written for an official purpose. Now, you do not write a formal letter to your mom, to your siblings, to your friends. No, you write a formal letter to, let's say, your class teacher, your principal, and anybody in an official position. You write a formal letter to those people. Take note of that. That is why we said it's actually an official letter written for an official purpose. Now, in a formal letter, you don't actually tell your reader things that are personal to you. You only tell your reader about things that concerns the organization or the institution and how it affects you. You could actually write to make suggestions. For instance, if you write a letter of apology to your principal for coming late to school, that is a formal letter. If you also write a letter of suggestion to your class teacher to actually suggest ways you think the class rules should be improved, that is also a formal letter. Hope you understand what formal letter is, right? Yeah, I believe we do. Okay, let's go over to the features of formal letter. What are the characteristics? What are those things? What is the format of a formal letter? Now, the first thing we would be looking at, the very first thing we would be looking at is the writer's address. Yes, remember, every letter should have an address. Every letter must have an address. And the first address that should be in your formal letter is the writer's address. Who is the writer? You writing the letter. Your own address should be the first thing. And your address should actually be at the top right corner of your writing material, your exercise book. Make sure your address is at the top right hand corner. Now you can actually see an example of my own address, which is the school's address. You can actually see it. The address is actually at the right, and as you can see, the address is in block form. What do I mean by that? Everything is aligned. The first letter of each address in each line actually aligns to the letter that precedes it. For instance, as you can see there, Best Schools International, plot 133. You would actually discover that the P is directly under the B. The P is not inward, neither is it outward. It is directly under the B. That's what we mean. So when you're writing your address, make sure it is written in block form. It should be as straight as mine is. Please don't write some in, some out, just like you can actually see it there. The second address, As you can see, it's not arranged, right? It's so scattered. It's just looking anyhow. Yeah, don't do that. That is unacceptable. Make sure your address is in block form. And also, make sure that every word in your address is capitalized. As you can see it there also, best, the is capitalized, schools is capitalized, international is capitalized. So make sure that every word in your address is capitalized. And don't forget your punctuation. There should be a comma at the end of every line of your address, and then the last word in the address would carry a full stop, which is Abuja, as we can see it there. I want to believe that is well understood. Okay, let's go over to the second feature, which is the date. The date, that is the second feature. The date actually comes directly under the address. The date comes directly under the address, but you must leave a line or you leave a space before you write the date. And it should also align to your address. It should align with the address. It should not be on its own, irrespective of the fact that you have to leave a line or a space depending on what you're using before writing the date. And also, your date should be written in expanded form, in the sense that you should write your date in full. Write the date, for instance, 18th, you write the month, May, and the year 2020. Please don't abbreviate it. Now, this is how your date should be. As you can see it there, 18th May 2020. Please don't abbreviate it. Don't use numbers all through. It's unacceptable. Don't do something like this, 18/05/2020. That is very, very wrong. Okay, and number 3 feature is the receiver's address. Yeah, the receiver's address. Now, in a formal letter, after you might have written your own address, which will actually help your reader to know where the letter is coming from. You have written your date. The next thing you should write is the receiver's address. You acknowledge the person. Now, when you are writing the receiver's address, let's take for instance, you're writing a letter to your principal. Now, the receiver's address would be in this manner: the principal, don't forget your punctuation, comma, best schools international, comma, and life camp, comma, and Abuja, full stop. Now, as you can also see from that address, you discover that the receiver's address is not at the right, it is at the left hand side, just under the date. So if you're using an exercise book, for instance, after your date, you go over to the next line. By the left, write your receiver's address. And also, it should be in block form. Just like you can see it there, it is in block form. Okay, let's move over to the fourth feature. The fourth feature, which is the salutation. The salutation. Now, the salutation is simply you acknowledging the person, dear sir, dear ma'am. Yeah, you understand, right? That's what the salutation is all about. Now, the salutation actually comes immediately under the receiver's address. After the receiver's address, the next thing is the salutation. Also, you leave a line or a space, depending on if you're using an exercise book or if you're using a plain sheet. You leave a line or a space before writing the salutation. Now, let's actually see an example of mine. Yeah, you can see it there, right? Dear sir, dear ma. Those are the only salutation that is actually accepted in formal letter writing. You don't use, even if you know the person's name, you don't use it. So that, for instance, if your principal's name is Mr. John, you don't say dear Mr. John. No, no matter how familiar you might be with your principal, you must use dear sir or dear ma depending on the gender of the person. Now, if for any reason you don't actually know the gender of the person you're writing to, then use dear sir. To a large extent is universally accepted. Don't use dear ma and don't use dear sir slash ma. It is wrong. Okay, let's go over to the number 5 feature. The number 5 feature is the heading. Yes, the heading. Now, every formal letter must actually have a heading. You tell your reader what you're writing on, what the purpose of your letter is all about. You just summarize this, just give it a heading, because since it's a formal letter, the person may not actually have the patience to really go through it without first having a hint of what you are trying to say or the message you're trying to pass across in the letter. So after your address, your date, the receiver's address, the salutation, the next thing is the heading. Your heading could actually be in two forms. You could use the indented heading, or you could use the block form heading. Now, if you're using the indented heading, you would actually write your heading on the next line immediately after the salutation, but it would be in the middle. Just like you can see mine there, it would be in the middle. And if you want to actually write your heading in the block form, you'd leave a line after the salutation and then you write your heading, just like you can also see it there. Now, you can decide to either underline your heading or leave it underlined. Now, if you want to underline your heading, then you would capitalize each word. The first letter of each word would be written in capital letters. But if you do not want to underline your heading, then you would have to write everything in capital letters. Just like you can see mine, the first heading is capitalized, while the second heading, every single letter is capitalized and is not underlined. Okay, let's move over to the sixth feature, which is the body. The body. Now, the body is actually where you expand on your heading. The body is where you actually tell your reader everything you ought to tell him or her. For instance, if you're writing let's say an apology letter for fighting in class, it is in the body that you would apologize, that you would promise not to fight again, that you'd actually tell your reader that you actually regret fighting and it would never happen again. You tell your reader all those in your body, and please, your body should not be less than 3 paragraphs. Also, in your body, you don't greet. It's not like an informal letter where you greet the person and ask the person how the person is doing. No, in a formal letter, you just go straight to your point. You don't greet at all. Now, there are actually a list of sentences that we could actually use to open a letter that we could start with. For instance, you could have after your heading, I am writing to apologize for fighting in class. On, you mention the day, the date, and you keep going. Or you could say that I wish to apologize for fighting in class. On, you mention the date, and then you keep going on and on. So that is actually what is expected of you in your body. Now, the concluding paragraph of your body is also very, very important, because that is where you actually tell your reader, or you promise your reader that you won't fight again, and you also to a large extent anticipate or thank your reader for accepting your apology and or what have you. So you could say something like this: I hope that my apology is accepted, and I promise not to fight again. Yeah. Okay, now let's go over to the seventh feature, which is actually the last feature that we would be looking at for today. The seventh feature is the complementary close. Now, for every letter you write, you must close it, and you must close it well. Your closing must be good and perfect. Now, for your formal letter, the only form of closing that is accepted is yours faithfully. Yours faithfully. Now, your Y should be capitalized. Your Y should be written in capital letter. In fact, it must be written in capital letters, and then faithfully in small letters. Now, after yours faithfully, you put your comma, which is very, very important, and then you sign. You must sign. It's a formal letter, so everything must be official. You sign, and then you write your full name, not just your name. You're not permitted to write your first name. You must write your full name. If your name is Charity Basi, like me, you would write Charity Basi, your surname first, and then your first name. Okay, that's that for formal letter. I believe that we can actually define formal letters, and we can identify the features of formal letter. And with all those features, you should be able to write a well-developed formal letter. Now, that's actually going to be our assignment. Let me see how you guys would actually put those features that we have discussed, that you have learned, into practice. You know what I mean, right? So here's the assignment. Write a letter to your principal suggesting ways the school's learning facilities can be improved. That's the letter you're meant to write to your principal. Your letter should not be less than 150 words. That's actually not much. It's just 150 words. And I believe most of you will give me more than that. Yes, I trust you guys. Okay, so you submit the assignment um via WhatsApp. My number is actually here on the screen: 08184237023. I hope to hear from you guys, and I believe that you guys would actually make me happy and impressed. Do have a lovely day. Keep staying safe.